So today is a little bit different of a video. I like to keep them mostly fun entertainment with a little bit of tips mixed in, but today I only have a little bit of time, only maybe an hour and a half to fish until sunset, and I'm gonna be sending a tip video your way since I haven't done one in maybe, I think about 2 weeks. This video is going to be all about what I did basically all through high school, one of my favorite types of fishing, one of the types of fishing that most of you do most often, and that is bank fishing with a frog in the summer. Now going top to bottom, what you need first off, the lure, a frog obviously. Frogs can be very expensive. I know some scum frogs can be $2 to $3. Other frogs can be, like there's Japanese frogs, $15, $20. Is a $15, $20 one better than a $3 one? Yes and no. When I'm frog fishing, all I'm really looking for a frog is two things. One, I like if it's a heavy frog. Since you're bank fishing, you need to be able to send this a very long way to be able to cover more water, and a heavy frog is going to allow you to do that. Second, I like a frog with good hooks. Good meaning strong, sturdy hooks. Obviously sharp tips help. And the third is kind of more like buoyancy, walkability. Frogs that you catch a fish or two, they get punctured, they like to sink. That's no good. Especially when you're spending $10, $15 on a frog. I know I get pretty bummed after the first, second fish, that thing starts sinking like the Titanic. That's no bueno. There are some frogs I like more than others, but as a general rule, most frogs are gonna do about the same thing. Some frogs walk better than others. I know walking the dog is a very popular way to fish these frogs, but honestly, from what I found in my experience, especially bank fishing, it's not so much the frog you're using outside of like hookup ratio, again, in that strong, sturdy hook and the design of where it's placed on the frog's body. But it's more how you work it, when you work it, all those variables. And again, just to cover the rest of the gear, 100% of the time if I'm throwing a topwater frog, I'm throwing it on braid. Right now I have 65-pound braid because I was fishing in Texas for really big bass and using it for flipping and stuff, but honestly, I get crazy looks sometimes, especially from the likes of AP Bassin. I like using 30-pound, I'll sometimes bump it up to 40, but typically if I'm bank fishing like this, because again, I live in Chicago, I'll use 30-pound braid. It casts a lot easier, is a lot easier to handle on your reel. I never ever really have problems breaking off with 30-pound. You can still winch fish in, fight them. I mean, it's 30-pound braid, and at most you're gonna catch a 5-6 pound bass up in the Midwest here. A lot of times 65-pound braid, most people just assume you gotta go to 65, and that can be overkill a lot. 30-pound is a lot easier to handle, at least in my experiences, than 65. For a reel, I basically just look for something with a good drag because you want to tighten that drag down, and then a fast ratio reel. But I mean, even this, I'm using a 6.2 to 1, and it's still fine. The reel is not that important in the setup as long as it can cast far, so whatever reel you like that can cast far. Technically, the quicker the ratio, the better, so you can reel up quicker, take more casts, stuff like that. But one of the more important parts of the setup is your rod, obviously. If I'm bank fishing, I like a long rod, a 7.3, 7.6, even up to a 7.10, because a longer rod is going to allow you to cast farther. Now again, this video is about bank fishing. If I'm on a boat, I actually prefer about a 6'9" or 7 foot heavy rod, because that way I can keep the rod tip down in the boat and walk the frog a lot easier with the shorter rod, because it's hard to walk the frog with a long rod on shore, like a 7.5 footer, that's no good. But honestly, any rod, if you're bank fishing, any rod that's long, and if it has a heavy action, it's good to me. You don't need sensitivity for a frog rod. You need a stiff rod to get them out of the weeds. You can see the blow-ups. You can see when they bite it. So as long as it'll load up good, that's all you really need. I know on the boat, some guys like a lot faster of an action at the tip, a softer tip, so they can skip frogs better and it loads up better. But when you're bank fishing, you need distance and strength. That's kind of it. Now for the most important part, how you work the frog. One of the biggest mistakes I see anglers make when they're pond fishing with a frog is actually what they do before they even take a cast. I've said this in a lot of other videos, but I just want to reiterate it. When you walk out to a pond and you're fishing a frog, most of them you're fishing it over matted vegetation, and most of that is going to be around the shorelines. Fish in the summertime like to be grouped up in that weeds, and like I said, in ponds, most of that weed is going to be on the shore. So most of these fish are going to be hanging within 5-10 feet of the shore, and if you walk right up to the shore without taking a cast, you're going to either spook fish or at least alert them to your presence to where they're not going to be as apt to bite. My last video is a prime example. You know, before I fished a culvert, I took a cast from about 30 yards away, worked it to the culvert mount, and I caught a fish. Had I walked up to that culvert, would not have caught one. So before you walk up to the bank, make sure you take a long cast and work that immediate area, and then what I like to do is take a right and a left and then work on the outside, because if you're walking around, fish can feel that. Fish can feel that you're on the shoreline. The retrieve, I'm kind of on the fence here if a frog retrieve is important. Sometimes I like it really fast, just skipping. Sometimes I like a slow, methodical walk the dog. Sometimes I like it just slow, like barely popping it. Sometimes I like it if you just sit there. Basically, my advice to you is you got to experiment when you're on the water. I typically stick with just a walk in the dog because I have confidence with it. A frog is one of those baits when you first start fishing it, you're not going to have that much confidence in it, but the more you fish it, the more you get comfortable with it, you're going to find a cadence that works for you, stuff like that. There's not one right way to work a frog is basically what I'm getting at. And every day in the water is usually going to be different with a frog. You got to find out what they want. Now, when you're finding areas to work a frog, matted vegetation like the cheese scum mats, that's what most people think of when they think of frog fishing, but that is not the only place to catch them good on a frog. You can catch them good on weed lines, that's another obvious, but I love to throw it in open water too, around laydown, stuff like that. Anywhere where there's shallow water, where there's fish hiding, they will eat this frog. You do not need matted vegetation, anything like that. It's a great big fish bait, it's a great search bait, so you don't need it just around matted vegetation. When you are around matted vegetation, like the cheese mats, the number one thing you're searching for is those snap, crackle, popping sounds. The bluegill feeding on the bugs and stuff and insects and invertebrate on the mats of weeds, the cheese mats, that's what you're looking for. The bluegill's gonna attract the bass. If the bluegill are in there, that means the mat has good oxygen, stuff like that. Because in the summertime, a lot of the areas are gonna have low oxygen. The weeds are gonna produce oxygen, and once you find the good weed patches that aren't dead, the green weeds that are producing oxygen, that's where the insects and invertebrate are gonna be, the bluegill are gonna be, and then the bass to follow. Now, if you notice, I came out here with maybe an hour, 15 hour and 30 minutes until sunset. Probably now it's about an hour until sunset, but this is the prime time to be frogging. The two best times to throw a frog are the half an hour before and after sunrise and the half hour before and after sunset. Now for me, it's a lot easier to get out and go frogging at 7:30 at night to 8:30 at night as opposed to 5:45 to 6:15 in the morning. But those are gonna be your best bite windows, those low light periods, those low light periods when fish are most active and feeding. And finally, a very important part to your fishing success that most people don't realize is the body of water you're fishing. I know in areas like the suburbs, most people just stick to the places where they know there are bass, like local forest reserves, stuff like that. I highly, highly urge you to get out and go do some exploring. I have a great Google Earth video on how to find fishing ponds. I'll link that somewhere. I'll link it somewhere, but that video teaches you how to find fishing ponds on Google Earth and how to find the ponds like these that have scum. And then the fun part is going out and exploring them. When I was a kid, the way I found the good fishing ponds, the way I found the good fishing ponds, the ponds that had like the 4, 5, 6+ pound bass in them, you got to go off the beaten path. You got to go to the ponds that aren't heavily fished. Unfortunately, there's a lot of bucket heads, people keeping fish in the suburban areas, so you got to go to those ponds that are really off the radar, low key. This one's in a business park. It's not in a neighborhood. It doesn't really get hit that often, or at least it didn't before. So I hope it's not getting hit a lot. There is a path here now, but regardless, my point still remains. If you want the good results, if you want big bass, you got to go where they live. And in the suburban areas, when you're pond fishing especially, you got to find the ponds that have them. You can't catch a 5-pound bass if he doesn't live in the pond. So in those prime areas, the hour after sunset, if you don't have any good ponds around you, just go on Google Earth, watch my video if you need some tips, and just start searching. Do a 5-mile radius around your house, 10-mile radius, 15-mile radius. I promise you, if you have a lot of ponds around your area, if you live in a big metro area like Chicago, like I did, you will find ponds that are off the beaten path, not pressured, and have big bass. They are out there. They're hard to find, especially in the beginning, but trust me, they are out there, and then once you find them, they are very, very worth it, because then you got your honey hole all to yourself. Just don't be posting YouTube videos giving away the location. And don't hit trees when you cast. All right, now that I just spewed random tips off the top of my head in the last 5-10 minutes, I'm gonna start fishing this pond. If I think of some more, I'll throw them your way, but I'm basically gonna fish this frog now and see if I can pull some big ones out of my old honey hole. There we go. Wow, that's a really little guy. That's not a good sign. But that's the first fish. And that actually leads me to a point that I totally forgot and just thought about. The most important part of fishing a frog, the hook set. Also, this reel is it was just fine, but now it's drunk. Oh, wow, that's gonna be annoying. That's what happens with 14-year-old reels, but wow. Okay, let me not let this reel distract me. What I was saying, the hook set on a frog. When you start fishing a frog, you're gonna miss a lot of bites and a lot of blow-ups because you're gonna get excited by the blow-up, rear back way too early. A lot of people say you gotta wait 2 seconds, and that does help, but a lot of times 2 seconds is overkill. Basically, you cast that frog out. Wow, hopefully your reel doesn't sound like that when you do that. You cast it out, you get a blow up, you see the blow up and you see the frog disappear. I wait at least a second and I tighten up a little bit, and if I can feel the fish there, then I rear back and set the hook. You don't need to wait like 1, 2, 3 seconds sometimes, although they're not really gonna let go of the frog, so waiting 2 seconds doesn't really hurt you, but I'm just impatient. So once you get that blow up, make sure they're on there before you set the hook. Guys, this is unbelievable. I might have to take some of my own tips and look for new ponds. This pond used to be the holy land, the juice of all juice. But it is just fishing brutal. I used to come out here and catch at least 20 fish from 2 to 4 pounds, and I've been fishing for an hour and got that 1 10-incher. There we go. No! You know why I lost that fish? That was a big fish. You know why I lost that fish? I tried to reel, my reel jammed up. Oh, that was a good 3-4 pounder. How many signs do I need before I replace my whole reel arsenal? See, the reel is fine right now, but I think once you get weight on it, it just stops. Oh, swing and a freaking miss. Oh, this fish is just owning me. He's making me look dumb. He's making me look dumb. I pegged him the first time and my reel makes me lose him. So I gave him slack line because it just stopped reeling. And then he hits again just out of pity. And it's a swing and a miss. I went against my tip. I swung before I felt the weight. Even world champion bass fishermen like me screw up sometimes, I swear. It happens, it happens. Oh yeah, that reel sounds really nice. Wow, another freaking giant. Another giant for the world champion bass fisherman. Uses the best equipment in all the land. I think I'm gonna have to file this reel under the please repair category. Oh my God, this fish is... Finally got him. This reel was completely fine when I started this fishing trip, and now it is basically not usable. If I had another reel with me, I'd use it. Thanks for playing, little guy. He was feisty. He at least gets an A for effort. He hit this frog 4 different times. Thanks, Larry. You is kind. You is special. You is important. I think that's how that phrase is. I don't even know where that phrase is, but I see it everywhere. Girls love it in their Instagram bios. Oh, that was so cool. That would have been cool. Another swing and a miss. My batting average is weak. Weak tonight. Ironically, on a video when I'm giving tips and trying to show you guys how to frog out here, my batting average is weak. Oh my God. Whew. Those deer just scared the hell out of me. Thought there was someone creeping up behind me. Yo, Bambi, where are the 5-pounders at? You know? That's how you know these are deer that live in an urban setting. They could care less that I'm here. They're not out in the country getting shot at during hunting season. All right, I'm sick of listening to this reel. I'm gonna stop using it before it gets a lot worse. Hope you guys enjoyed these tips and stuck around for me to catch a bunch of little dinks. It was a fun video this week, and I'm doing an awesome video with my dad. I'm fishing a tournament with him this weekend for Father's Day. Hey, deer, come back. I wanted you to punch the camera. No? I get no love out here.